Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Teng. This is going to be in the Battle Pass this Christmas. We were expecting it, much like Scharnhorst 43 last year, we got ourselves some Tier 7 premiums in the Battle Pass. Unfortunately, this one's not in the free track like Scharnhorst 43, but we'll talk more about the monetization and the issues with it a little bit later. For now, what is the Teng? Well, that's a pretty nice salvo to start with. Absolutely insane overmatch there, plus this spotter plane giving us better dispersion. That's right. This looks like a Sinop because it's almost a Sinop with a Bungo style spotter plane. It's not as powerful. It is a 10% better accuracy spotter plane while it's active. And 10% is no joke. That is a lot of accuracy to be gained here. Even better than we see on just standard battleships, the dispersion upgrade. It's nearly the level of high-tier American battleships with their 11%. In the 6th slot. Yeah, that's 2 salvos, 44k on these poor cruisers. Yeah, mid-tier cruisers, it is a tough life out there. Everything overmatches you. You got a big citadel and you don't have any healing. It is very difficult. Teng, of course, is going to absolutely crush cruisers and does very, very well against battleships. This is a side-grade Sinop, more of a long-range focused Sinop, I guess we could say. So to start with those differences, let's look at the hull of these two ships. It's basically the same size, it's going to be the same HP pool. We do have half a kilometer worse detection on the Teng here, as well as slightly better turning circle radius, 840 meters versus 960 meters on the Sinop. So you won't be caught broadside quite as often, although with these ships you're often staying angled because they have relatively good firing angles. And they're quite tanky, very good armor here as well. Still get overmatched through the deck armor, of course, but the upper belt in that is very, very powerful. Other than that, it's the same. Repair, rudder shift, all that stuff. The speed, it's all going to be the same. It's just that slight detection nerf on this ship and a little bit better turning radius. That's really the change here. As for the guns, the reload is the exact same. Your range, you have nearly 1.5 kilometers more range, out to 18.8 kilometers versus 17.4 on the Sinop. So mid to long range Sinop is basically the idea here. Your HE salvos are going to be the exact same as the Sinop. The shells are identical. The AP shells, though, are a bit different. They have 12,000 alpha damage versus the 12,500 alpha damage on Sinop. So a little lower damage. The flight times are the same. The pen is slightly better on Teng at all ranges, which is decent. Other than that, they are the same AP shells. So same ricochet angles, same threshold, same overmatch, all that stuff. Dispersion though. Yes, even base dispersion is better on this ship at range specifically. It has 1.6 sigma instead of 1.5, so that's the tendency for those shells to go towards the center of that dispersion ellipse that is drawn by your both horizontal and vertical dispersion. At close range, though, Sinop is more accurate. So that's the key here. Teng has standard battleship dispersion table, not the Russian battleship dispersion table, which is more accurate at close range and falls off hard between 11 and 15 kilometers or so. Really, the crossover point here is around 13 and a half kilometers, where they're about the same accuracy. At longer ranges than that, outside 13 kilometers, Teng will have better dispersion, at least when it comes to horizontal and vertical. Sigma should help you out there too, even at all ranges. But at closer ranges, where Sinop likes to play, it will be more accurate. That's the very nice element of those Russian battleships. So with this spotter plane, though, play it at mid-range, play it at longer ranges, and it can do some nasty work. I will say I got trolled from time to time, I think. It certainly took me a while to get me some good games. Some of them were pretty difficult to see the benefit of this spotter plane. Could be aim bugs, all sorts of stuff. Could be misaim on my part. But also matchmaker. That's something to consider here with tier 7. I got a lot of tier 9 games, up tiered even into tier 8. Double carrier, double sub games. Yeah, that's not so fun. Not the ship's fault, necessarily. I do have to say that. It's not the ship's fault. But if you're getting that matchmaker a lot, maybe sometimes it comes into play when I'm talking about the value or if the ship is worth getting. So a little more accurate, a little more range, a little worse concealment. And other than that, the secondaries are going to be the same. Not worth specking into. They don't have any improved accuracy here. The AA is the same. And the consumables here. This is a bit of an issue with Teng as far as playing at closer ranges, I would say. You have standard damage controls, which is nice, unlimited charges, but it means you have the longer cooldown time. 80-second cooldown versus the 40-second cooldown on Sinop, which allows you to damage control a lot of fires and push up rather well without having to worry about so much fire damage. Is a nerf to ships with that extra fast damage control party. They often have reduced number of repairs, down to 3 repairs base, and then with Superintendent you can always bump that up to 4, but you never get up to the 5 that we see on standard battleships with Superintendent, or the base of 4, so you're missing 1 heal. Teng gets the longer cooldown damage control, but does not get the extra heal we usually see with the standard damage control. So you only get 3 heals base. So you are lacking healing and you're lacking the ability to damage control fires rapidly. So you're still tanky. You still have very good armor. Of course, Sinop has kind of insane armor at tier 7. You have a lot of HP for tier 7 as well. But just know that this ship does not have the healing, does not have the damage controls that we see on either Sinop or some of the other tanky battleships that have normal damage controls. Something to keep in mind. No fighter here, of course, because we have this high precision spotter plane. So it's active for 55 seconds base. You'll notice mine lasts a little bit longer, and I think that's well worth taking if you do get this ship, the spotter plane duration upgrade module. That's a bit of a premium module. You gotta spend coal to get it, but I think well worth it here. You get 10% range, so still a little bit of range increase, which is very nice to see. But crucially, 10% better main battery dispersion. 120-second cooldown on that. And base, that means that you're going to get 2 salvos or so out of it. But with the spotter plane upgrade, we can sneak in a 3rd salvo. Use the spotter, instantly fire, reload once, get the accuracy again, reload a 2nd time. And with this spotter upgrade, you can see I have around 10 seconds to fire my 3rd salvo. Didn't want to necessarily put it into the carrier there, as he was very low, and I think our DD's going to get him. So let's try on the Leon. Decent damage, but Leon has actually pretty good armor. I was looking at Leon armor. I was surprised because we have the other ship to take a look at yet, too. I'll probably look at that one tomorrow, I suppose. 2 tier 7 battleships in the Battle Pass this month. In fact, there's 2 separate battleships. I suppose this is a good enough time to talk about that. I'm really disappointed. I gotta say that I maybe am comparing too harshly to last year's Christmas, but Wargaming is very inconsistent. So maybe I should expect this at this point. But last Christmas in the Battle Pass, we got Sharnor's 43, an incredibly fun tier 7 brawling battleship, and it was free. You didn't even have to buy into the Battle Pass. It was excellent. It was one of the best parts of the Christmas update, in my opinion. It was really cool. It felt like an actual Christmas present from Wargaming, rather than the Christmas holiday event being our present to Wargaming for spending hundreds of dollars on loot boxes that it usually is. It was a genuine, nice effort from Wargaming to give the community a gift, a fun, interesting ship, a different version of a Sharnors that I really, really liked. I thought that was awesome, and I was hoping they were going to do it again. I praised them a lot for it. Even throughout the year, I praised them for it. I referenced it as a really good thing Wargaming did over the holidays, and I was hoping it would come back. Now, it isn't. It's almost the opposite. I feel like we're at a bit of a pendulum here with Wargaming and their decision-making. They swing from one side to the other, player-friendly, and then just... I don't want to say milking, but, you know, it could be seen that way, certainly. So these battle passes are 3,500 doubloons. That's the same as last year. It was 3,500 doubloons to get into the battle pass. It was a little bit more, but there was some more value in there. Certainly some crates, I suppose, but I don't really like counting loot boxes. It feels like gambling to me, right? So talking about the ships, we had 2 ships in last year's Battle Pass, Sharn 43, and I think it was Stored 43. That one wasn't as interesting to me, but the Stored was the only one you had to actually pay for. This time, though, we get 2 separate Battle Passes of 3,500 doubloons each. So you gotta pay into both to get either one of these ships. We're gonna look at the Lugdunum. I don't know how to pronounce that. Some people on the stream were saying we should just call it the Lugnut. And I'm down for that if you guys are, but Teng and the Lugdunum, or Lugnut, are both in the paid track of each of these battle passes, respectively. So Teng is the first battle pass, and you only have 3 weeks to complete it. And after those 3 weeks are up, you can no longer get any progress on this battle pass. It's not like a dockyard where it sticks around for a little bit at the end when the missions are over. You can still pay your way through it. No, this one's over on December 18th, this first battle pass for the Teng. At least it's not all the way at the end of the paid track. It's halfway through the paid track, which is nice, but still, last year was so much better. And I think Wargaming needs to be more consistent in these things. And I'm very, very disappointed. The Lugdunum, or Lugnut. I gotta commit. The Lugnut is halfway through the second battle pass. Starts December 18th, goes to January 8th. And again, that one will not be available after January 8th to complete. So, little disappointing. Sharn 43 was free. And now you gotta pay 7,000 doubloons to get these 2. I suppose that's not exactly fair, since to get the 2 premiums from the battle pass last time, you still have to pay 3,500. Look at that salvo. A little disappointing to start in this game, but oh my. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, right? I will say I had not played much Sinop, so it's hard for me to necessarily compare to Sinop here. There's a lot of new ships this update, so I wasn't quite able to get that context for you, but this ship does seem pretty solid, I will say. The guns feel great, 406s, a lot of overmatch. The spotter plane is hilarious. It is so fun to have that extra dispersion. Sinop already has sometimes these just ridiculously accurate salvos despite the 1.5 Sigma. 1.6 Sigma, 10% better dispersion spotter. Normal battleship dispersion at range means it's better at these longer ranges. It's very good. It's very good. It's not going to tank as well, certainly, compared to a Sinop, just because it doesn't have the healing or the damage controls, I suppose. It doesn't have the damage controls. Similar healing, but those damage controls help a ton for Russian battleships to survive, because they don't have to spec as hard into fire prevention stuff, as they can just spam their damage control, whereas here, can't quite spec as much into it. I should also mention that part of that lack of survivability, or the inability for me to take an extra heal, for example, here comes down to I was limited to a 14-point commander. So in testing here in these early access ships, I sometimes am limited on the commander builds, especially at these mid-tiers, which is fine, I suppose. But for some of these premiums, I think 21-point commanders are a reasonable expectation for most people to have, or at least 18, 19 points. Maybe that's a little bit old player elitist, thinking that everyone has those commanders, but I think a lot of people probably do. So a little bit limited here. The ship will perform slightly better with a higher point commander. In this game here, we got some deep water torps coming past us. That is terrifying. Long range shot. We managed to get a Citadel there, but the dispersion was pretty bad. Without the plane, though, so fair enough. We aren't buffing it in that case. Got very lucky with that Citadel, I will say. Devonshire here pushing out broadside onto us, and this isn't unique to Teng. This is just what happens at close range against broadside cruisers when you have high shell velocity and high pen like these Russian battleship guns have. You might overpen cruisers, you otherwise would rather not. Good accuracy, we hit 5 out of 6, but yeah, not even a full pen in sight there. Feels a little bit bad. I will say the armor held up shockingly well. We were fortunate that the Amagi didn't get a salvo into us fully when we were broadside, but I found myself in most of these games not taking really that massive of hits at closer ranges when I'm angled. It's really when I got to mid-range and long range where this ship does want to play with its spotter plane. Certainly it wants to play there, but you have that overmatchable deck armor, and into your own tier it will get overmatched, as well as high tier, of course. So the armor profile doesn't really support it quite as well, in my opinion. It's one of the benefits of Sinop is you get those insane damage controls that let you push in, not worry about fires. When you push in, you don't have to worry about your overmatchable deck armor as much, because the shells are going to be hitting you at a flatter arc, so they're going to be hitting your belt armor, anything like that. Your superstructure is shockingly small, kind of reminds me of Fuso type of thing, where there's just a couple towers to hit and that's it. So at longer ranges, it certainly can take more damage to some of those battleship salvos. Closer ranges, though, I mean, you're seeing it there, I suppose. The difference in, maybe we got unlucky, but the difference between standard battleship dispersion and the improved close range accuracy of the Russian battleship line is very, very nice. No spotter in this instance, for sure, but you're not always going to have the spotter up, and you get some inconsistencies there. Certainly, battleship dispersion, 1.6 Sigma battleship dispersion, doesn't sound very good, right? Like when we talk about this spotter plane being up, it's very, very nice, of course. But let's just think about it from that perspective. 1.6 Sigma battleship dispersion, 9 guns. Sure, their 406 is a tier 7, which is very good still. It's not, I'm not saying this is a bad ship, by the way, but I'm just saying that 1.6 Sigma battleship dispersion is not traditionally a ship we would consider accurate or a long-range sniper, would we? The spotter helps a ton for that, and we do have to consider that with this ship. But when it's not active, when it's not available, that's when this ship can feel a little bit awkward, let's say. Rook does get some pretty big damage into us, even at these ranges, so you do notice that. At these longer ranges, sometimes your armor doesn't quite hold up as much as you would think, especially if you've played some of the higher tier Russian battleships. They're very tanky at these longer ranges because they don't get overmatched through the deck armor. Certainly Sinop, Teng Shihal can. When that spotter is up, though, wow, what a salvo into that Rook. Another 10k hit there from the Rook, though, so the armor, right? The armor a little bit. I suppose in this case, we do heal it up, and in this game, with double carrier, we're still going to try and make it work, but with very little AA, it's very important to clump up with your teammates and just hope the carriers don't go after you. And I got pretty lucky for the most part in the early portions of this match that the carriers didn't go after us. I guess the improved turning circle radius does help us out against the carriers, lets us dodge a little bit easier, at least in Sinop. It's a pretty long ship, I guess we could say, and that turning circle radius on Sinop makes it pretty difficult to dodge some of those incoming torpedo strikes or dive bomber strikes to angle appropriately to them. So it's nice here on this ship, I will say, I'll give it that. Not that you want to be fighting carriers, of course. No one really wants that. I should talk, I suppose, more specifically about these turret angles. It's 30 degrees. It's really, really comfortable. A lot of ships tend to have pretty bad firing angles at these mid-tiers, especially if they get some pretty solid guns. They force them to go broadside a lot more. Not so in this ship, and Sinop as well. It's one of the really nice things, again, about being at closer ranges with this thing. You can afford to shoot all of your guns and then angle back in quickly. You can still take a citadel or two at 30 degrees. It's very rare, though. You got to hit a very specific portion of the bow and then get pretty fortunate with your pens. But it can happen. But the nice thing here is you don't have to swing out too far to actually get those guns. And that's front and back. So relatively comfortable firing angles on this ship. The turret traverse does present a bit of a problem. 60-degree turret traverse. We're getting into Yamato territory. That is very, very slow these days. The guns are strong for tier 7, though. I will keep mentioning that. Very powerful caliber. The dispersion plane helping you out a ton, too. It's really, really good. But 180-degree turret traverse means you have to be planning ahead with where you're going to be aiming these guns. Free look is your friend. Pre-turning your turrets when you know you need to be turning around. Very, very good things to get in the habit of with any battleship, but you really need to do it on slow turret traverse ships like Teng Shi. Yamato certainly is a great ship to learn that with. Grom pushes out, and we're bow in. We dodge the carrier torps here. And I'm thinking maybe I can outsmart him. Maybe he torped directly from my bow in place. Let me try and turn to dodge the torpedoes. And he torped for that. What an impressive prediction there. I gotta say, well done. Had to compliment him in game. That's some good torp predictions, I gotta say. Otherwise, it would have looked silly, right? Torping the island like that, but he called my bluff. Well done, well done. We found one of the carriers finally, and no plane, but oh, that's an Alabama salvo, I think, and we nearly finish him off. Getting up close to 100,000 damage. We take another close to 10k from the bombs there. Feels a little bad. Fortunately, the tier 6 isn't doing quite as much to us, so maybe the tier 6 carriers are a little bit more reasonable to fight for this ship, but yeah, the tier 8 ones, they hurt. They certainly hurt. Pushing in like this, I mean, Tennessee doesn't overmatch us. I just was not angled enough for that. Tennessee has some very accurate, scary guns. You will notice that with the secondary positions on this ship that there's some hull trap spots there where the secondaries kind of make the armor bend and twist a little bit. So even when you're angling well, if there's an accurate salvo or the shells happen to hit there, they can definitely full pen you. So I should probably be more bow on to this Tennessee. And there we go. Slow down and turn in. Did throw off his aim a bit. I've been a little bit spooked by this Bismarck. You can see I pushed in and then realized going broadside to a Bismarck, that could be a bad thing, especially at these closer ranges. The Citadel is quite vulnerable at close range when you're broadside, so we got to be quite careful of that. Tennessee versus Yorktown. I probably should have shot the carrier, I guess. Both of them just have underwater citadels, though, so I was just kind of shooting the Tennessee, I guess. I did not have a lot of hope for dealing damage to the Yorktown. It's a ship that I've shot at a lot when it's broadside, and I very rarely, I can't even remember the last time I got a Citadel on it because the Citadel is so low in the water. But we'll try it. We'll try it. I'll even forego shooting at the destroyer here. Surprisingly, the secondaries have been hitting a lot of DDs. I don't know if you've noticed that throughout the video, but shocking number of secondary hits given the not improved secondary accuracy. But we do manage the Citadel. There it is. It's been a while since I've Citadel to Yorktown there. He smokes himself up. Yeah, support carriers. We're not going to rant about carriers today. We're talking and criticizing the battle pass, okay? We gotta limit ourselves to one thing to complain about in each video. We could do more though. I certainly could do more. But a very, very nice game here to end it. I had really solid games in this ship. Some of the up tiers, though, were a little demoralizing. The double carriers, not always the most fun games. Looking back on it, this was a solid game, but it wasn't very fun to have the carriers hovering around you all the time. That's not a very enjoyable experience for me. So maybe in the moment I was a little bit less happy than I am now, certainly. But decent potential damage here. Certainly not the best tanking. We took some big salvos, even though we were angled at those longer ranges. Something you do have to be aware of. But it's a more accurate Sinop. That's interesting. It's very powerful. I mean, especially against mid-tier cruisers. My goodness. No armor at all and overmatched everywhere. No heals. It is tough out there. At closer ranges, sure, maybe you get lucky with going broadside and taking overpens like that Devonshire did. But for the most part, I mean, the poor cruisers just explode, especially to a ship like this with 406s and a spotter plane. It's tough out there for you cruiser players. I see you. I see it. Don't worry. I will say, though, this might be... Actually, no, I'm not even going to say might. This is easily the nicest looking port that they've added for Christmas. This is awesome. The atmosphere here is very, very nice. Solid looking port here as we get into things. I haven't really looked around yet, so I guess we click our ship and there we are. So Teng right here. The build that I was running, I actually believe I was running Gunfeeder. You notice I really didn't shoot the HE. I probably should have on this ship, considering 41% fire chance, 5.8k alpha. Like, that's really good. That's very, very good. So I probably should have done more, but the AP was doing solid work for the most part. Some of the games that I had more frustrations in where I didn't really do as well, probably should have just swapped to the HE and I would have had a better time. I believe I ran this for 14 points. This is, I'm pretty sure, what I had. Fire prevention, because we don't have those fast acting damage controls. It's a little harder to get away without fire prevention there. Concealment, because we want to be surprising cruisers with this better accuracy, and that meant no fourth heal. So some of my complaints there might be counteracted by just having a more higher point commander. You could, I suppose, get to 5 heals now that I'm thinking about it, with improved repair party readiness as well. But I do like the idea of consumable specialists. Getting back to that spotter accuracy plane a little bit faster is nice. You get 5 of them. I often didn't run out of them in game, so I should be using them a little bit more. So something like that, I guess, would be an interesting build to me. Where are my upgrades? What? We go equipment from here? Okay, there's some issues with this port then. Okay, it looks nice, but perhaps some of the usability could use some tweaks. I'm not going to complain too hard though, because that one it does look very, very nice. Of course, running aiming systems. Of course, running damage control here. A little worried about those fires lasting too long on this ship, I gotta say. And then spotter aircraft mod 1, 30%. So we go from 55-second action time all the way up to 71.5, and that gets you 3 salvos. And I think that is very important for this ship. If you're gonna get this ship, it's just so nice to have this high precision spotter. Survivability, armor. Wow, we can see the armor from back here. Yeah, I don't like the usability of this port. Okay, this is a bit of an aside. And actually, I gotta apologize. I totally forgot this Sinop has much better armor here, at least on the upper belt. I should have looked at that a little closer. I was wrong. 26 up here, and you can see those shot trap angles, right? You can see that here and here. So quite a bit worse armor, I would say. 30 mil bow plating here as well. It is nice against your own tier. Certainly, there's not a lot around you. You have to get up into tier 9 stuff to really see some overmatch there. So you're quite tanky bow on, but your armor plating is not as good at the upper belt, of course. That's a little bit worse. And then the bow plating here usually isn't going to get overmatched. That 30 mil probably doesn't get overmatched very often when playing tier 7, but it is something to consider. Of course, your Citadel is gigantic on both of these ships, so you do have to be very wary of who you give broadside to. I think that's a good thing, by the way. It's more ships need to be punished for going broadside. It's so basic to me. Maybe it's not, but maybe I'm wrong. But in my brain, it just seems so obvious that when a ship goes broadside, it should take damage. All right, not gonna go into that today. We have other things to talk about, and that specifically is the event pass. This is a problem to me. So at least the ship is halfway through, not at the very end. You don't have to grind through it in 3 weeks to get all the way to the final stage to actually get the ship. That's a good thing. But yeah, I don't like this where we have 2 separate battle passes to buy into, not just one. That feels like double dipping to me, milking a little bit to me. It also sucks that there's not an option to get one of these ships halfway through in the free track for the battle pass like we saw last year. I think that was a really awesome Christmas present. And yeah, this just ain't it, man. And some of the UI stuff, communicating things, maybe it's just purely oversights on Wargaming's part, but I highly doubt it. Why does the commander and the ship have the same level 11 icon, the same portrait here? It makes it seem like these are the same level of rewards. By that, I mean they're in the same progression track. Typically, and honestly, we see that down here. It's a little bit of a gold or green hue, I guess, here, where the premium track signifies that it's a premium track, right? Why isn't the premium reward, the one you only find in the premium track, gold? Like why isn't this a more gold border or something? Just to let people know you have to buy into it to get this one. I don't know. Simple stuff like this is just... Maybe I'm nitpicking too hard because I just hate this decision to have a double dipping battle pass for these ships this year relative to last year. It's so much worse. And coming off the heels of a Black Friday event where they specifically removed the 4 ships that everybody wants from doubloons, and last year, previous years, they were always available for doubloons. it just feels like a pretty a trip. It feels like Wargaming have stumbled here at the end of the year, and that's quite disappointing because there's some good stuff too. I mean, your dockyard having the premium ship available halfway through, that's awesome, right? Like, that's a really good thing. We had it for a very long time there where they took the premium ship away partway through, and that sucked, of course. We hated that. I was very critical of that decision, much like I'm very critical of this double dipping dockyard where you only have the option to get these ships with paying 3,500 doubloons each time. With the dockyard, there it is. Kalmar is available. Now, this is, I would say, not a mid-tier premium. I would call this a low-tier premium, tier 5 to me. Mid-tier to me is around tier 7. Maybe that's something, again, played the game a long time. My perspective has shifted too far away, perhaps. But this is a pretty low-tier premium, so it's kind of on the border. But for sake of argument, they've found the consistent thing with Dockyard where you grind through, you can get a mid-tier premium halfway through for free, and if you want the final reward, it's 2 phases at the end that you have to buy. Very standard, very good formula, consistent, we know what to expect. Mission chains that aren't too hard, but they're not easy, certainly, but it's no Puerto Rico original event. It's good, like, it's good enough, okay? It's still monetized pretty heavy, but it's good enough. But this battle pass is just, it's a pendulum, man. It's just so far swung the opposite direction than last year's battle pass. A little more in the middle. I mean, I would always prefer towards the side of player friendly, obviously, but it's so confusing how we just swing back and forth. I never know what to expect out of Wargaming decision making. As I should mention that, guess what we got? We got detonations removed. I'm so happy about that. Such a wonderful change for the game. There's just such an amazing change. I love that. And then there's other things that it's just like, why are we doing these other things? I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. I'm maybe not even the most coherent here. Just kind of yapping and complaining. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Sometimes I do think some people at Wargaming do watch these videos. Maybe they'll take a look in the comments, see how people feel, at least in my community here. I've already given this feedback to the CC Discord and all that stuff, but yeah, just very disappointed at the end of this year, I gotta say. There's some good stuff here. The art department did a great job on this port. The UI needs some improvement. Why, when I'm looking at my ship, is all the UI gone? All right, like, this is terrible. Why do I have to go back here, right? Like, some small things. That's minor. That's very minor. I'm just annoyed right now at the battle pass specifically, and a little bit of the milking that it feels like is going on in the last 2 updates. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. This is a long video, I'm sorry. I got into a rambling, ranty mood, I suppose, and went too far. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you got to the end here, thanks for listening to my rant. But it's a Christmas update. There's some cool stuff here. We'll have to check it out. But yeah, really, thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.